The performance truck market has developed into something that would have seemed almost absurd 20 years ago. A serious, premium segment where buyers spend serious money turning already capable pickups into machines that look and perform like they belong in a desert racing program. Shelby American has been one of the more committed players in that space, and the redesigned Super Baja based on the Ford F-250 Super Duty is the company's latest and most emphatic statement in that direction. This is not a truck that received a lift kit and some graphics and got sent out the door with a premium price tag. The Super Baja is a comprehensive transformation that touches nearly every system on the vehicle, built on top of a Ford F-250 Lariat with the Ultimate package, which is already one of the more capable and expensive configurations Ford sells, and then taken considerably further from there. The exterior makes the truck's intentions clear before you get close enough to read the badging. The most visually dominant change up front is a newly developed air induction hood that's been designed both to manage airflow more effectively and to give the nose a presence that the standard Super Duty, impressive as it already is, simply doesn't have. Below that sits a custom-painted grille carrying Shelby branding, which ensures that anyone who sees the truck coming knows exactly who built it. The front bumper is powder-coated steel, engineered specifically for off-road use rather than adapted from a road-going design, and it incorporates recovery points that are there to be used rather than to suggest capability the truck doesn't actually have. Mounted above the bumper is a 40-inch LED light bar, not a decorative strip of lighting, but a serious piece of illumination equipment that makes navigating in darkness or dust a fundamentally different experience than it would be with standard headlights alone. The fender flares extend the truck's width in a way that changes the entire silhouette, creating the kind of stance that makes the standard F-250 look narrow by comparison. They're also doing real work, accommodating the 37-inch BF Goodrich off-road tires wrapped around 20-inch wheels, a combination that adds meaningful ground clearance and provides the kind of traction on loose, uneven, or wet surfaces that standard truck tires approach differently. Shelby-branded fender vents contribute to airflow management while reinforcing the custom identity of the build. And the power-deployable running boards paired with rock sliders along the lower sides address two separate problems simultaneously, making it easier to climb into a truck that now sits considerably higher than it did stock, and protecting the body's lower structure from the kind of contact that off-road driving regularly delivers. The rock sliders, in particular, are a detail that separates trucks built by people who actually use them off-road from trucks built to look like they might. The body stripes and bedside graphics are where personal taste tends to vary most sharply, because this kind of bold visual treatment divides opinion reliably. For buyers drawn to the Shelby heritage and the visual language that comes with it, the graphics package is part of what makes the truck feel like a complete and coherent build rather than a collection of individual modifications. For buyers who prefer something more subdued, this is probably not the right truck, and Shelby is clearly not building it for them. The Super Baja has a specific personality, and it commits to it fully, which is a more honest approach than trying to be everything to everyone. The bed setup is worth spending some time on because it reflects genuinely thoughtful preparation for the kind of use the truck is designed for. The protective liner is standard enough in concept, but the Baja chase rack above it is specific to this build and developed specifically for the Super Baja rather than adapted from an off-the-shelf product. It houses two full-size spare tires, which is a detail that reveals something important about the intended use case. Desert racing and long-distance off-road running are environments where tire damage is a real operational concern rather than a hypothetical. Two full-size spares means the truck can sustain multiple tire failures in a remote location and still get home without needing outside assistance. The 9-pod light bar on the rack adds to what is already a formidable lighting setup from the front, creating a vehicle that treats darkness and visibility as problems to be comprehensively solved rather than accepted. Powder-coated exhaust tips and a reinforced rear bumper with integrated LED reverse lights complete the exterior work, maintaining the design coherence through to the back of the truck rather than leaving the rear as an afterthought. The suspension work is where a significant portion of the Super Baja's performance character actually lives, and Shelby has done this properly through a collaboration with King Shocks, which is one of the more credible names in serious off-road suspension. The setup increases ride height while delivering greater suspension travel, the combination that matters most for high-speed off-road running, where the surface changes faster than the driver can respond, and the suspension has to absorb impacts that would send a standard truck bouncing off its bump stops. Adjustable front coilovers allow the truck to be tuned for different environments and driving styles, rather than being fixed at a single setting that represents somebody's best guess at a compromise. The rear piggyback shocks handle damping performance during the kind of sustained, high-speed running where heat buildup becomes a factor. The piggyback reservoir extends the shock's thermal capacity, which matters on a long desert run in a way that it simply doesn't on a weekend trail drive. Dual steering stabilizers address the handling characteristics that come with running larger tires on a heavy truck, improving precision on uneven surfaces where steering feedback can become vague and fatiguing. The 2-inch tubular radius arms contribute to structural rigidity and better suspension geometry, ensuring that the upgraded components work together as a system rather than as individual improvements that each pull in slightly different directions. The interior details are still waiting on official images from Shelby, but the confirmed upgrades sketch out a cabin that follows the same premium but purposeful logic as the exterior. Special leather seat covers, carbon fiber trim elements, billet aluminum pedals, embroidered floor mats, and a distinctive center console badge. These are the touches that make the interior feel like a finished custom build, rather than a standard truck that had some things bolted to it. The carbon fiber and billet aluminum in particular carry the motorsport visual language inside in a way that connects the cabin experience to the truck's performance identity. None of it transforms the interior into something unrecognizable from the F-250 Lariat underneath, which is appropriate. The Lariat's cabin is already a good place to spend time, and the Shelby additions build on that foundation rather than replacing it. Under the hood, the Super Baja keeps the high-output 6.7-liter Power-Stroke turbo diesel V8 from the donor truck, which is the right call. This engine produces around 500 horsepower and 1,200 pound-feet of torque, figures that remain striking even in a segment where power numbers have escalated considerably in recent years. The torque figure in particular is what defines the truck's character. 1,200 pound-feet is the kind of number that makes steep climbs, deep sand, and heavy towing feel like they're being dealt with rather than struggled through. The 10-speed automatic transmission manages gear selection across the range, calibrated both for highway use and the specific demands of off-road running, where the relationship between engine speed and wheel speed needs to be managed differently than it does on pavement. Four-wheel drive is standard, distributing power across all four wheels in the conditions where maximum traction is the priority. The price is $159,795, which includes the base truck that already costs roughly $97,000 before Shelby touches it. The gap between those two numbers, approximately $62,000, represents the suspension system, the lighting equipment, the exterior modifications, the interior upgrades, the chase rack, the specialized tires and wheels, and the craftsmanship involved in putting all of it together properly. Whether that represents good value depends entirely on what you're comparing it to and what you're planning to do with the truck. But for buyers in the market for a purpose-built expedition and performance truck at this level, the competitive set is narrow and the Super Baja's specification is comprehensive. Production is limited to 250 units worldwide, which places it firmly in the collectible category, regardless of how it's used. There's one additional piece of context worth noting. The Super Baja is the first vehicle assembled at Shelby American's new facility in Bristol, Indiana, which represents a genuine expansion of the company's production capacity rather than just a change of address. Building the volume of specialty vehicles that Shelby's current lineup demands requires infrastructure, and the Bristol facility signals a level of operational ambition that goes beyond producing limited runs of individually significant cars and trucks. For the Super Baja specifically, being the inaugural vehicle from a new facility gives it a place in Shelby's history that goes slightly beyond its specifications. It marks a moment as much as it makes a product. For collectors who track those things, that context adds another layer to what is already a well-constructed case for paying attention to this particular truck.